Okay, we're live.
Okay, good morning. I'm Hunter Morrison, the city's planning consultant, and this is a meeting of the Design Review Committee held at 9 a.m. Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. This is a virtual Zoom meeting. It will also be archived on YouTube for later viewing. We have three cases before us today. The first case is DRC 21-03, David Roos, Strollo Architects, proposal to install 360 linear feet of 6-foot-high chain link fencing with 12-inch diameter spiral razor wire at the top around a portion of the east parking lot located at Valley Foods, 461 East Federal Plaza, Youngstown, Ohio, 44503. We have Mr. Roos, do you want to present your case?
Yes, sure.
And do you have
First off,
graphics that go along with this, or do you?
Yeah, I do. I do. Yes. Let me share the screen here. Someone else is sharing, so it won't let me at the moment. There we go. Okay, is that visible, the plan?
Yes, that's very good. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this is David with Strollo's. I'm representing Valley Foods this morning. One of the issues they're having here, and first let me start off by saying we are going to make an adjustment to our request for the fence where instead of razor wire on the top, that's what the quote came into us when we first started this from the fencing company, but the owner has since asked to change that to a 3-strand of barbed wire on the top instead of the razor wire, so it's not so dangerous. But the issue the Valley Foods is having whenever they park their vehicles over in this lot, they either get windows broken, converters cut off, all kinds of issues whenever they park vehicles over here. So they're trying to fence in this west lot of the building off of East Federal Street. I do have a photo showing you where that is to give you some context. This is their warehouse building right off of East Federal. Across the way, you can see on Andrews where Brilux is. And they do have a same fence there, which is a 6-foot-high barbed wire fence as well. I have a photo of that so you could see. And this is what we're proposing for around the perimeter of our parking lot, same type of fence with the same type of topping. So anyways, that's really what they're requesting. We're going to have no entrance in that fence onto Federal Street. They want it off their back service road, which is just south of the building. And other than that, it's just open chain link fence with the barbed top, if that's acceptable.
So you're wrapping the property on all three sides with 6-foot-high fencing.
3 sides. There's additional asphalt right in this area. I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen, but just to the west of where the fence is, there's additional asphalt. But there's a property line about 5 feet, I believe, off there. So we stopped the fence where the property line is to our side of it, obviously, and then bringing it back to the south and then back to the east up to the building again, and then putting in a 12-foot gate for them to get their vehicles inside.
Next to the property, immediately to the west, is a city-owned parcel, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Have you?
Yeah, and that's sitting empty right here, right now.
Given the security concerns, have you thought of a more ornamental fence? I know Brilux has historically had a fence there, but this is downtown. So, have you considered anything that would make this look less like a industrial site under threat?
They did not, due to the expense of the fence. It's not something they had planned on doing. And as you could see, not only Braddock's, but across the street, there's the same chain link fence. If you go catty corner up to Boardman Street, where their main facility is, the parking lot that they have there on the corner of Boardman and South Avenue is also chain link fenced with a bunch of trailer trucks sitting in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, they didn't consider going any more ornamental just due to the expense of the fence and the surrounding areas.
Right. Well, this is an area that's getting reinvestment, including with the build grants. So I'm not sure that doing what was done in the past is where we need to be in the future. But I'd like to open this up to questions and comments from the members.
I guess I had a question for Chuck. Just because we've done with things in the past, it is what it is. But is there any law or rule on the books in terms of what fencing is like along main corridors? Any general height requirements or anything like that? I guess for our reference.
Sorry, my mouse won't wake up. It would be, if there's anything, it would be a zoning question, I believe, on a height of a fence. I don't, this is.
I believe it's 6 feet.
Okay. Yeah, this is a commercial area. It's not a residential neighborhood. So I don't know what the zoning is on that, but aesthetically, just out of curiosity, Dave, have they considered some type of treatment on the fence or a different color?
They have not. I think that what happened here is, they took this fence to zoning trying to get approval for it, Chuck, due to the fact that things are getting stolen all the time. And so Laura directed them that they had to go through my office to submit this for some reason. And I'm not really sure why, but probably because we're doing the other projects up on Boardman Street at the moment, and we will be coming to this building to do some work in the near future. But they really haven't. Their concern was just getting a fence up to protect their property, and as you can see what's in the surrounding area, and if I go back the other way, you'll see more of this same chain link fence in the whole east side of downtown. So, they're not looking to spend a lot of money to put a fence up to protect their stuff. They were just going with chain link, and we didn't look at any other options. It was just kind of the request of the owner to put this fence up.
Hunter?
Yes.
If you look at the design review standards for development, page 14, where it references screens and fences, it says the following materials are permitted for fencing: brick, masonry, stone, wood, wrought iron, and evergreen hedging. Height and location requirements can be found in the zoning ordinance. So I don't see chain link on here in the design review standards. I don't know if anyone else has read this and come to the same conclusion, Chuck or someone else from the committee.
I think if you're doing chain link fence, sometimes what they have you do is put that. I know this is what we did for Nikki over at You Pull It, which his fence was already existing, so I don't know if it applies in this situation. But there was some type of black shading that he put over the chain link fence. So I don't know if that's some type of variance or something he would have to apply for to do something like that. But no, I don't think at this point the chain link fence is permitted. But I'm not there.
I think you're correct, and there are various ways to mitigate. And well, Nikki, you've quoted the design review standards, which speak to what's permitted and therefore what's not permitted. But there are also ways to mitigate the impact, including, Councilman, a vinyl chain link fence, which in green or black, which makes it more decorative. The question of whether barbed wire is appropriate in downtown going forward is one that is a serious issue. It's a highly visible site. and then there's landscaping options, but a raw chain link fence with barbed wire is clearly not anticipated in the downtown design code.
You know, as soon as you get into shading devices and add-ons to a chain link, I think the owner ought to take a look at the pricing for a more ornamental fence. You know, considering something like the black aluminum pickets that we've generally approved for the downtown area.
Exactly. Those what we're talking about is an ornamental fence with it could be 6 feet and has pickets on the top that provide the security. There are a number of designs that would meet the security requirements, but also be ornamental in nature. A raw chain link fence says a lot about downtown. That is not necessarily positive.
To the chair, this is Laura.
Yes, Laura.
So according to the design review standards, Nikki is correct under screens and fences. It does not list chain link. So there are some other options for them. I wanted to add that the height is correct for that zone. It is not zoned anything that would prohibit the 6 feet from being allowed. So that is okay, but the type of the fencing, they'll probably have to upgrade, which we could make it a condition of this approval.
Well, you know, I was hoping my owner would be on here this morning. They were invited, and I don't see them.
Dave, I just got on.
Okay, Mike.
Who is this, please?
This is Mike Mullins from Valley Foods.
Okay, welcome.
Yeah, I had some trouble getting on there. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I mean, from what I'm understanding is you're saying that the chain link fence is not, it doesn't meet specifications. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, you're hearing that the chain link fence is not specifically permitted.
Okay, and what are the options then?
Laura or Nikki, you have the book in front of you?
Well, the options are very cost prohibitive, is what they are. I mean, we need to look at what the situation is here, I think, and understand that they have a high rate of theft in this area and shouldn't be punished because of that to pay a large expense for a fence. I mean, we need to come to some kind of middle ground agreement here on what's acceptable and what's not.
Understood, Mr. Rose. Nikki?
According to the standards of the design review, brick, masonry, stone, wood, wrought iron, and evergreen hedging.
And by wrought iron, it could be aluminum wrought. It's something that looks more ornamental, I believe. So those are the options that are specifically permitted.
And is this something that just changed because there's, I mean, there seems to be chain link fence across the street.
Yeah,
they have been in place. These are as of 2008. So these are when these standards were adopted and codified. Okay,
because I mean, basically my boss just wanted to put something up to kind of protect our property. I mean, they're breaking our windows out over there. They're, they stole the catalytic converter off of the van. I mean, it was parked there one night. So I don't know that he's going to flip the bill for all this, but I mean, I could give him the options. I guess that's all I could do. Is there any variances or anything like that could come into play?
Well, we'd have to request a variance for the chain link fence.
Now, that would be a Board of Zoning Appeals issue as a variance.
Mm-hmm.
Also included in those guidelines, it says that if you go with the wrought iron or chain link fencing, it can be black. It can be accompanied by evergreen or other plantings to soften its appearance. it doesn't have to be crazy. It looks like just making an effort to blend into the landscape, especially as we have, it looks like millions of dollars of pending investment over there too. We don't want to do things as we always have.
To the chair.
Yes.
So like I mentioned earlier, if you go over and look at You Pull It on the east side, I think it's on Albert Street. What they did is a landscaping design along with the existing chain link fence. They coated it in some type of black covering and they planted trees and things like that. And they basically dressed it up and made it look good, so it was able to be approved. Well, actually, it had to be approved before they was even able to proceed. So I think it's not a punishment of any kind. It's just a standard that the city has that we're trying to raise our standards to make the city look better, have properties look better, and basically cohese with other properties and where we're trying to go as a plan for the city. So I think if it's something that just looks like a regular chain link fence, like we're building a prison or old car lot, that's not going to be sufficient. But something that dresses it up, makes it look good, it still wouldn't be too much of a cost. I don't think Nikki paid too much more for the covering. The landscaping was something that he just wanted to do anyway. So I think you can probably get away with the same thing if you come back with a design that looks like that, if you want to go check it out.
And with regard to your break-ins and your damage, we'll definitely get our law enforcement involved and see what enforcement we can put in place, because we want to make sure that your business is safe. So, we don't want to compromise by putting up, like Councilman said, a fort just to keep out trouble. We want to make sure that it's aesthetically pleasing to the blend of the community, but we'll definitely get law enforcement involved to see what we can do to help on that end.
So if they have a chain link fence that's acceptable, what are you saying the covering options are that are acceptable? Because there's multiple things that can be done.
I think
we could do vinyl slats, we can do all kind of stuff, but I mean,
well, Dave,
their
I think
goal is to get the fence up. So.
Understood. And our goal is to have a viable business and not have theft. I think we agree on that. But also, this is a kind of a gateway site into downtown and from South Avenue and into the Andrews Avenue area. It's a pretty visible site, and it's right next to
like an alligator.
It's right next to a city-owned piece of property as well.
I'll do that later.
Sorry, I was getting some interference there.
That's okay. What I'm saying is, I think there are a number of decorative options in terms of chain link. It would still require a variance because it's not a specifically permitted design. But as the councilman has pointed out, you can achieve this you can achieve the barrier effect, which is what you're trying to do, is to stop people from just casually walking on and doing theft.
Right.
With a variety of fencing options, including for decorative purposes using vinyl, and also you know that there are chain link options where the grid is smaller, it's tighter, it makes it very difficult to climb it than the standard chain link fence. I think the question of barbed wire in downtown is probably a non-starter. I would suggest coming back to the committee with some cost-effective options that achieve a barrier effect, but don't look like a prison yard, and don't convey to people coming in on South Avenue that welcome to an unsafe area. South Avenue is one of the principal entrances off the freeway network into downtown from Boardman and from as far away as Pittsburgh. It's a principal entrance to the Cavelli Center, and again, it's highly visible. It sends a message, and I think that's what in 2008, the city in adopting the design review code was clearly aiming at, which was an upgrade in downtown.
Through the chair.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Nick has provided the design review standards. So if you can look in the chat, the design review standards are there, and that'll help give you a guideline. Like I
Yes,
referenced.
I have them. Thank you.
Okay. And then page 17 talks about if chain link fences are proposed, you know, what you can do with that. If I may, Hunter, I'd like to ask Aspasia what they've done with their fencing.
Go ahead, yes, please.
Hi, yeah, I understand because in our building, all the windows are broken. I get that because there's nothing going over there. But in March, we are going to start construction and we are going to take our fence down and, you know, fix up that side. And I think, you know, if you know that that's what's going to happen with us, you know, just because we do want to make it very pleasing in that area, especially with Derek and I being there. And, you know, we're going to have security. We're going to have, you know, there's going to be a lot more tension there. So I don't think there's going to be, you know, the theft that's going on now and the break-ins and everything, you know, the more you see activity. But yeah, we are going to take our fence down. I just wanted to add that, if that, you know, just so you know.
Ms. Liris, for the record, what property are you representing, or business are you representing?
460 East Federal Street.
And what is 460 East Federal?
Penguin City Beer.
So you're immediately across the street from the property in question.
Yes.
And your intention is, can you explain for the committee what your intention with the fencing is?
We're gonna take the fencing down as soon as construction's finished, and we're hoping construction is going to be finished in September of 2021.
And are you putting a fence up at all?
No.
Okay.
No, we will not have a fence.
Will you be storing vehicles and the like outside the way the applicant is doing now?
Our vehicles will be stored in the back.
Okay.
The front's going to be parking for patrons.
Okay. So it's going to be a patron lot.
Yes, it's going to be a restaurant.
Okay.
The front is going to be a restaurant, and the back's going to be like where the brewery is, and that's where the trucks and everything will be stored.
Thank you. I think is there another abutting property owner, Mr. McDonald? Derek McDowell? Did you wish to speak?
Thank you. Yes, thanks, Hunter. Yeah, I just wanted to, you know, echo Aspasia's comments. My property is at 365 East Boardman Street, so I'm literally on the opposite side of the Valley Foods proposed building. And I would just share the comments that we would love the opportunity between Aspasia, myself, and you know, Valley Foods to have the conversation. When I purchased the property, I have a fence around the sort of back portion of my property. Part of my property butts up against Valley Foods' other property as well, on the corner of you know, South Avenue there. And in between the two buildings, there's a fenced-in what used to be a service road. And you know, I share that now, but I'd love to share that with them personally. That lot can be used between their two buildings to store their vehicles. I mean, I'm willing to have these conversations to talk about where we're headed with our plans for renovations and revitalization of our property for the Youngstown Flea and all the different initiatives that we've got, and would love to talk with Valley Foods about use of this proposed parking lot for patrons between myself and speaking for Aspasia as well, if I can do so, that you know, having a fence is not the sexiest thing in our minds, but you know, certainly I understand the concerns. When we bought our property, I came up to the fence weeks later and found the lot cut, and thankfully there was a YPD officer right across the street. I went and shared it with him. You know, took pictures, walked the property to ensure, you know, no other entrance, you know, illegal entrances were noticed. So I can feel their concerns, certainly, but I think with some of the upcoming investments to that area and having more activity there, that will be a deterrent in itself. I'm at my property almost every day. I look across the street and I see Aspasia at Penguin City almost every day. I think that'll be a deterrent in itself. And, you know, the volume of people that will be, once, you know, certainly things return from COVID, the volume of activity will in itself be a deterrent for you know, crime, I would believe, and aesthetically, again, where we're going. So I would just love the opportunity, long story short, to be able to have a conversation with those at Valley Foods and design review prior to arriving at a decision.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. Nikki, we have 3 property owners investing in one corner of downtown, which is a very, very good piece of news. And would it be possible perhaps for the city to convene the affected property owners? And we're also a property owner owning that green spot and a rather substantial piece of green in front of all of this. Would it be possible perhaps for the city to convene the actors and have us to all have people talk amongst themselves about a consistent approach to dealing with aesthetics and security, so that the message that's sent is consistent between 2 retail operations, retail-facing operations, the Flea and Penguin Brewery, and then essentially a light industrial operation, but to have the appearance on this important gateway into downtown consistent.
Through the chair, what I'd like, I like Derek's idea of the 3 businesses coming together and just talking about how they can share this space, you know, if that's possible. We've presented the design review standards to Mr. Roos and Mike. And I don't want to complicate this because we definitely want the progress that we're making to continue. So, you know, for the sake of not dragging this out, if they can have a conversation, they have the standards, how we can change the fencing, paint it black, you know, if it's going to be a fence, but we can always come back to this with the new proposal, whatever that's going to be, whether it's going to be to continue with the fence black with the shrubbery or not. So I'd like us to come back with whatever that decision is once they talk amongst themselves.
Would you then move to table this for until the March meeting to allow for time to have those conversations?
Yes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Opposed? Motion is to table this, and Laura, I would suggest if there are zoning issues that we identify those and book the case for future zoning review. I think we want to not have the process get tangled up any more than it currently is in terms of moving up an important project forward. But if Mr. Roos, if you could work with your client and perhaps convene a meeting with the other 2 affected neighbors, come back with something that is consistent with the intent of the design review code. And I think Councilman Oliver has suggested an approach on Albert Street that might be appropriate here as well. Then I think we could see you in the March meeting.
Understood. Is there a way to share contacts after the meeting with these adjacent owners?
Yes, there is.
I believe I have Mike's number. Mike, we've met.
Yeah, you have my number and I have yours.
Yeah.
So
okay.
So we can...
You all have each other's numbers. You can connect. Derek, you can. Okay.
Well, yes. I don't have Penguin Brewing information.
I have theirs. We can connect.
Okay.
Derek, as a suggester of the idea, can you and Mr. Roos sort of organize that conversation. It would be much better, I think, if the committee saw a unity of purpose here, and all three property owners came in. And again, as the city, we have an interest in seeing not only the aesthetics but also the effect on the property that is city property. So we're interested in seeing the results of your conversation.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to Valley Foods. I know, being a new neighbor, we want to be great new neighbors. Obviously, just would love to work together. So I'll reach out and I'll connect everyone here if I can.
And again, I would urge the timeliness of this. We need to get this resolved quickly. So if you could plan to return to the committee in the March meeting, hopefully with a consensus, I think the committee would be very pleased. And I think, again, if you have questions on the technicalities, our staff is here to work with you.
Is the date set for the March meeting?
Yes, it's the first first Tuesday in March.
Okay.
Be the second.
Right, exactly. Exactly. 2nd of March. So we'll see you first up at 9 o'clock on the 2nd of March.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is DRC 21-04, Raymond and Aaron Lounsway, Bella Amica Casual Boutique. This is a proposal to install a 30-inch by 18-inch black and white metal projecting sign located at Bella Amica Casual Boutique at 19 West Federal Street in downtown Youngstown. Do we have the sponsors?
Yes, Ray Lonsway, I'm present.
Right, good to see you. You have the drawings are here. Which building is 19 West Federal?
We are directly to the right of the Avalon on West Federal. We're as part of the Avalon building. Avalon.
Okay. And what is your proposal then?
We're looking to just hang off the building as pictured a 36 by 18 Bella Amica Casual Boutique black and white sign, not lit, just a hanging sign similar to the one that's down the street at Concept Studio. Ours is obviously a little different design, a square sign. Theirs is round, but basically the same layout as theirs. Just come off the building with a steel frame hanging over the door.
And then there's a picture there of that. And what's the material of the bracket or the projecting element?
Would be metal.
And what color would the metal be?
Black.
Okay.
And the sign would be black and white.
And this will project 3 feet over the sidewalk?
Maximum 3 feet, yeah.
Okay. And you don't have any mounting details. Is there a sign contractor involved?
I believe I'm going to use Jensen sign. I wanted to get the approval. Wherever the city, needs me to use.
That's a firm I believe we've done, had present to be before us.
I did speak with them and they were familiar. They said to get this part of it done and then get back with them, but they were familiar with what the city is requiring.
I think given the absence of any details, I would suggest a conceptual approval is all you can give and have them come back in March with Jensen presenting the details. We've looked at details of projecting signs and brackets from other companies and want to make sure that it's done in a way that handles wind loads, et cetera, et cetera.
Is there a certain, or you just want me to have the sign company do that?
I would suggest that that would be an appropriate way. Mr. Sashow, as the city's.
I would say that the details, mounting details, is that would be approved when they submit for a sign permit. Sometimes if we're You know, if there's any question, if it's a complicated sign, then sometimes we send it over to the Mahoning County Building Department. But in this case, I don't think we would do that. I am interested to know how high off the ground that is to the bottom of the sign, though.
Oh, the sign is going to be, it's over the door. It'll be about 10 feet off the ground.
Okay.
And based on your experience, Mr. Shashow, is that an adequate height from the sidewalk?
Your detail actually shows 18 feet.
18
I
inches.
think it's 18 inches.
That's 18 inches out. 18 inches is the height of the sign by 36.
For an 18 inch, I mean, it's 10 feet is certainly high enough to be out of the way of pedestrians and such. There's no danger of any trucks there. That would be, you would want that at 13.3, but for an 18-inch high sign, I think 10 feet's a good height.
Okay.
Aesthetic wise, I mean, if you get any higher than that, it's going to start looking real tiny.
Yeah, we didn't want to go any higher than that. Just over the door.
To the chair, this is Laura.
Yes, Laura.
So the vertical height, Mr. Longsway and I went over that. He does meet the downtown standard for vertical height. So I just want to add that.
Mr. Shashow, if this were to be approved conceptually today, would this be appropriate for this simply to have the staff review the details to make sure that Jensen is doing everything right, which we assume they would?
Yeah, as long as the aesthetics are approved by this committee, the mounting details will be addressed during the permit process.
Okay. So to that point, we're addressing the aesthetics of this sign. Any other comments or questions from the members of the committee? If not, then I think a motion to approve, subject to review of the construction details by staff, would be in order.
Thank you. I'll make a motion.
Who is that?
Cretion.
I have a quick question before. I know we have a motion on for it, and that's okay. I just have one more question.
Well, let's get a second to the motion, then we're going to have discussion of the matter. Okay, it's moved and seconded. Mr. Shashow?
My one question is to the applicant. The sign, is it hanging on a free swinging chain, or is it mounted in a more of a rigid fashion to the pole?
They had suggested, because of the wind, to use a more of a chain type setup to do it. I mean,
okay. I'm just. I know we're just reviewing aesthetics, but I guess it is a function of that. I'm a little concerned that the wind would just start whipping that thing around, and
so you'd rather have more.
We would tether, like if it was a traffic sign that's up on a span wire, like a no turn on red sign, nowadays we tether them down with a bottom wire or something. Like, is there any chance that
we could
tethering
make
option on the like maybe to the building from the bottom of the sign?
Yeah, we could do that. We could attach it to the building end of the pole, so that if you're concerned about the wind, that's not a problem.
Okay. That's the only question I have.
To the chair.
Yes, Laura.
I think that the wind load will be addressed when he submits the engineered drawings, if I'm not mistaken, by the building department.
I'm more concerned, Laura, I appreciate that, but I'm more concerned about not necessarily the bracket and the post blowing off. I'm more concerned with the chains breaking from like cyclical stresses from being blown by the wind all the time.
Okay, I gotcha.
All right. That's not a problem.
Mr. Lonsway, if again, it's been moved and seconded to give a conceptual approval, but you've heard from Mr. Shashow a number of construction details, and I would suggest that you and Jensen reach out to Mr. Shashow and his team to look at the construction details, so that all those maintenance issues are addressed.
I'll do that. I'll reach out to you once I have it put together with them.
Through the chair.
Yes,
I just want to make sure that we are following the standards, because it does say here in the signage standard, signage shall not employ moving parts, emit noise, smoke, or other foreign substances so as not to distract motors or cause a safety hazard. So I guess the moving and the swaying with the chains would be an issue.
Yeah, I think Mr. Sponsor, I think the intent of that was not to have a wind-powered or electric-powered moving sign that's distracting, but to your point, a sign that's flipping in the wind is also distracting. So I think these are issues that Mr. Alonso and his consultants, Jensen, can address with Mr. Shasho.
Okay, I will do that.
Alonso, I thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve this subject to presentation of the construction details to Mr. Sashow and other staff. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The third issue before us is DRC 21-05. Bruce Sekenick and Philip Sekenick Architects proposal to perform exterior alterations, which include the relocation of the entry from West Federal to Central Plaza, removal of existing truss sign, and application of vinyl multicolored sign graphics on both the Market Street and Federal Street facades of Oh Wow. This is currently at 11 West Federal Street. Do we have the representative of the applicant or the architect?
Yes, good morning. I'm Bruce Sekenick with Philip Sekenick Architects in Warren. We are the associate architect on this project. I'm also joined on the call this morning with Paul Herbert. He's a senior associate with Cambridge 7. They are the design architects out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. And also on the call is Suzanne Barbetti, who is the director of WOW. And our presentation today is about our work on the facade. This is part of a multi-phased improvement and expansion of WOW. And we're doing work, as I think you can see within the drawing set that was submitted, to the interior, but also it's affecting the exterior. So what I'm going to do is I would like to share my screen, and we'll pull up the actual approach and the exterior views of this, while Paul Herbert goes through the description of what we propose to do. Up. Okay, Paul.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. I just wanted to quickly go through some of the things that we're working with. Oh, wow. I'm from a firm called Cambridge 7 who works with children's museums and science museums all over the country. And we're very excited to be working with Oh, wow right now. And Bruce, of course, is helping us out. So first, the first couple slides are just some images of Google Street View to kind of give everyone a reminder of where we are. This is the Market Street facade. So a lot of you guys know these two towers, and we're the lower 3-story building in the middle there, set back on the plaza. This is another view of that plaza. This is the facade that the museum is currently not using as its front door. This is the other side. This is West Federal. So right behind the tree, next to, I think it's Avalon, is our facade. And this is the current front door for the Oh Wow Children's Center that we're going to be, essentially the project is to swap the front door, the location from this location to the Market Street side. This is the other angle looking west. And so you can see on the left-hand side, you can see where the first floor there, the metal panel with the canopy and then lit Oh Wow sign, the graphic or the logo. So these, I have some floor plans in here to kind of sum up the project real quick, but essentially these are the existing conditions. And so this is what they currently have on the right hand. You can see the ground floor. The project here is that they are currently, the light blue is their lobby and there's a vestibule, and we're switching it to the other side, to the Market Street side. And so the next slide shows how the new proposed solution will work. The light blue is now on the Market Street facade, along with retail and visitor services. Actually, the next slide, Bruce, is a zoom in, so you'll get to see. So here I've placed both the existing on the left and the proposed on the right. And so essentially it's a kind of a one-for-one swap. We're taking the engineering exhibits. There's an amazing airways exhibit that's about kinetic energy and has a lot of moving parts and stuff. We're moving that to the Federal Street side, and we're taking the, as you can see, there's a front door and a front vestibule in the existing, and we're removing that in this phase and putting the engineering gallery at that end of the building in the windows. And then this will be on the left here. This is the existing condition. So you have the amazing airways in the windows, and you have the engineering, or and the existing Market Street vestibule there. And on the right is the proposed solution. So we're putting retail in the center 2 windows. We're using the same doors as the main entrance now for the museum. And you enter into the lobby, into the ticketing area there. The next slide, this is the Market Street side. So this is the side that's currently not being used as the main entrance. It does have doors. And this is the existing conditions. It's a silver metal panel. And then the next slide shows what we're proposing, which is to wrap the metal panel in a essentially a film, a graphic printed film that goes on the metal panels with their logo. And then we're also proposing to put that a perforated version of that film onto the glazing so that we can still see some of the fun and the kids, the retail and some other the museum stuff, but to also just kind of really get excited about presenting our new front entrance to the Market Street side. And we're also proposing a sign above the door there, which is right now it's a flat sign that's meant to be essentially flush with the metal panel, the face of the metal panel. And it'll be we're thinking a backlit kind of static image sign. And then so this is existing Federal Street facade right now. This is the current entrance, has a canopy and has the truss and the wow sign. And the next slide shows that we're proposing to remove all of the stuff that protrudes off of the building. We're putting the same logo over on the metal panels. And the second bay from the left, you can see changes from a door to a window here. So those 3 bays, those 3 center bays will all be views of the engineering exhibit. And for the time being, we're thinking some temporary signs to say our entrance is moved, just like, on the inside of the door or inside of the doors there. But then eventually people will, get used to walking around the corner to go into Oh Wow. And that's it. And then this is just a little information about the product we were using in case any questions come up about what we're putting on the building.
Paul, I'm curious about why you chose super graphics, which is a somewhat retro approach to the sort of design aesthetic. I don't see
Well, yeah, so that's a good question. I think the bigger picture is that Oh Wow is planning for more than just this first phase. And so when we started working with them back in July, the goal was to move the front entry and get reopened by May. And so our goal is to do something here that gets people excited, gets fun, and let people see into the museum, but then also something that's not too permanent. We didn't want to spend too much money, and we didn't have a lot of time. So we're not going to put any new canopies or anything out there. And essentially the plan is to have this for a few years and then come back, see you guys again, I'm sure, and then have a plan for a more permanent solution to what the facade would be. And in that case, it might be actually dealing with the metal panel and maybe changing it out. I don't know what that solution will be, but that's a couple years down the road. This was more of a, what can we do now that can be exciting and fresh and new and get us a few years of looking fun, bright, and then deal with a more permanent solution.
So essentially, you're looking for a temporary solution. Do you have a sense of how long temporary means? You said a few years.
Yeah, we think it's probably a couple of years. I would say, maybe Suzanne knows more, but I'd guess it'd probably be 2 years that we'd have this up, and then we'd be thinking about the design for the future.
And you're referring to, yes.
I just want to say about this, I really like it a lot. It kind of reminds me of going to like the Google facilities in like Pittsburgh or something. It looks very inviting. It looks exciting. It looks like, you know, it's somewhere you want to be. I think it's a great addition to downtown. I like it a lot. That's just my comment. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You won't miss it on the way into downtown.
That's the plan.
That much is clear. And since it's on a middle panel system, that's clearly not the original on a historic building. I mean, we don't have historic preservation issues here. But I sort of like. Go ahead, Councilman.
Plus, you gotta consider this is supposed to be inviting to children. I mean, so you know that design kind of just makes you think that this is something that those kids they're gonna pull up to it on their city school buses or wherever they're coming from, and like just never forget going in there. They're gonna pull up, literally say, "Oh wow."
I imagine a lot of class pictures out in front of the building.
Oh, definitely. Thank you.
Will you put a photo point in a little brass plug on the sidewalk? Here's your photo point. Stand here. You need to do that. Suzanne, I know a lot of the intention of being temporary is a function of fundraising and other priorities. What is, as a applicant, what is your sense of how long this sign might be in place?
I think Paul's pretty accurate. We are looking down the road to the SMART 2 revisions in the SMART 2 grant phase 3. So that impacts what we're doing today, right? We want to open in May. We've been closed 14 months. It's important that people know that we are operational, that we're open, and that we're located on that central square, taking full advantage of that prime real estate. So we really appreciate your consideration and really each and every one of you who've been to Oh Wow. Spread the word. We're still here, and we'll be back May 15th.
And when you refer to the SMART 2 improvements, those are a bus turnaround or a bus drop-off in front of the building that's included in the final design?
Yes.
And Chuck, when is that part of the work likely to take place? Do you recall?
That would most likely take place with the Federal Street project, which will probably begin construction in 2023.
And it'll last a year? So it'll be open 2024?
That would be probably one construction season, I think. So fall of 23, maybe.
Mm-hmm. So
there's a lot of things that can happen between there.
And Suzanne, it's your sense that when that's open, you will be in a position to perhaps revisit the signage, come back to the committee at some point?
Yes.
Well, it sounds to me like you are proposing a temporary or time-limited application with a time period 2 to 3 years out from here, probably most conservatively 3 years out, 2024. And that at that point you anticipate coming back with perhaps a different approach to the signage, at least on the side that's affected, which is the Market Street side.
Yes.
That being said, are there questions or comments from members of the committee? I think we've established the facts here. Mr. Grecian or Mr. Davignon, anybody have any comments on this?
I was muted. Have there been any other aspects of the project that have gone through design review? I know there's some other phases planned or potential drop-offs. Has that gone through the committee before my time or anything like that, just for the full picture?
I don't believe we've seen anything and the final approach to the plaza area, which was somewhat later addition to the work, hasn't been presented. But I think again,
What's going to happen is this contract's build grant, Smart 2 Network is a design build contract. The bid documents that we put out were basically conceptual drawings. There's a limited amount of design done. The details of colors and plantings and such are, although they are in compliance with the City of Youngstown adopted complete streets guidelines, they will be presented by the engineer that's doing the design as the work goes. So you'll see Front Street will probably, or Phelps Street will probably be one of the first ones that comes before design review. And obviously it's going to be a continuation of the existing Phelps Street project. But to answer your question, Hunter, the turnaround, the details of that will be presented when it comes into design.
Very good. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, then a motion to approve this with the understanding that this is temporary in nature and to be revisited upon completion, on or before the completion of the build grant project affecting the project, would be in order.
Hunter, I'll make a motion to approve Build Avenue.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is that John?
Yes.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, and thank you for the thoroughness of your presentation.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the final case before us. Is there any other matters to bring before the committee?
No, there's a late item that
Yes.
was added on the agenda. So there's another case.
And which one is that? I don't.
DRC 21-06.
And I'm sorry, I don't have that on the printed agenda.
I'll read it.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Case number DRC 21-06, Richard Kozowski with Tequila Coyote Restaurant and Bar, proposing to install a 144 by 18 black aluminum projecting triangle sign with routed faces with backup acrylic, internally lit with white LED, located at the Wick Towers, 34 West Federal Street.
Very good. Thank you. Is the sponsor here? Richard?
Good morning, everyone. My name's Herb Rabat, and I'm partnered with Rich.
Okay.
And I have Lori on the line here from Fast Signs to assist us in the presentation. So we should have a good view of what we're looking for.
Very good. It says, do we have a presentation from Lori?
Lori, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Unfortunately, we don't have the engineering drawings as we are late to the meeting for today. I do have the paper that shows the actual drawings of the triangle sign that will be located.
Rick, do you have that on in the files?
I could share my screen as well.
Okay.
Okay.
And go ahead.
Okay, this will be a triangle sign, as was already mentioned, that it's going to be
thank you.
An aluminum cabinet. It will have the faces will be routed with aluminum with acrylic backup white LEDs. So actually, this will the cabinet itself will be black, the faces white, or we may switch it back. But it's going to be on the corner. The engineering drawings that I need to get will let us know whether we are going to need either 2, 3, or 4 brackets for mounting. The sign is going to be approximately 800 pounds, a total of 144 inches high by 18 inches wide on each side.
Could you see my screen?
Yep. Yes, thank you.
Very good.
Can you scroll back down to the photographs?
Yes, sir.
My first reaction was the sign's too high, particularly relative to the Federal Street building, but also to the aesthetics of the building in question. Why did you mount it as high as it was?
I wasn't sure what the height needed to be for this type of sign on the corner. So I just had my design person put it at a certain area. We also have the corners that protrude out. So we've got to make sure that we have connecting points on the top and the bottom. So if I know what if we need to be 10 to 12 feet above grade, we can bring this down to whatever your requirement.
I would suggest, I mean, you have two historic buildings, both designed by Burnham. The federal building has a projecting sign that sort of rests on that molding at the top of the storefront level. Yours seems to sort of float between the second and third floor. I would suggest looking carefully at the federal building and seeing if you can match the scale and the mounting height so that it looks like it was an intentional effort to make sort of to twin the two buildings.
Sure,
right?
Sure. That was just kind of a guesstimate of where we put it, knowing that we would either be moving it, down a ways, depending on what you required.
I think it would be appropriate if this sign seemed to sit on the top of the first level, the way it does on the Federal Street side,
okay,
rather than kind of floating between the second and third floor.
Sure.
Are there questions or comments from the members of the committee?
I would just echo your comments. Bringing it down a little to be proportional with the twin building next door would probably make the most sense and be the most aesthetically pleasing, just looking at the Phelps Street corridor and across the street.
Yes, please.
I have a comment about it. I mean, I think the sign on the federal building is a nameplate for the federal building. I mean, this is not a nameplate for the WIC building. This is, a business sign, and I think it's probably too big. I don't have a problem with it being located kind of at the same level, but I think the scale of it should be somewhat downsized.
How would you suggest handling the motion or the action today then, Mr. Davignon?
Well, I mean, it's hard to tell exactly how this would look without seeing it. It just seems to me like it's not serving the same purpose as the federal sign is. And it just seems to be too tall in proportion to the federal sign.
Yeah, there is no, with this sign specifically, we originally had 20 feet in length, and we talked to the New York group or the owners of the building, and we minimized the height of the sign to get to where we're at. And, it looks much bigger in this picture, but when you imagine 12 feet, the federal sign there is 12 feet, I do believe. And the sign here is a 3-panel sign. So you would see it from the new Phelps side, you would see it coming from the east, and you would see it coming from the west. So it is a 3-panel sign that we wanted to have good exposure there. And we are the only restaurant within that space that is going to be open to Phelps. 12 feet or 144 inches is in line with what the federal sign is.
And I guess my point is it's not serving the same purpose. This is, identifying a business. And I think it's probably should be almost half the size in height. I don't have a problem with it being located where it is. But it should not be scaled proportionate to the federal building sign. That's just my opinion.
Through the chair.
Yes, Councilman.
Here's my thoughts on it. You have basically the premier luxury apartment building, which is basically trying to have the premier restaurant of its type in that building on a street that we've just designed for pedestrian use. And if you kind of look at the way they've done their design and the way the doors open to Phelps Street, it's like this business calls to have more attention brought to it. So I think their sign is absolutely amazing. I think it fits the purpose of what they're trying to do in that building, in that space, on that new pedestrian street, facing all the way down to the amphitheater. I think it fits it well. And I think if we're going to bring Youngstown to this small, big city environment, I like their sign. I don't disagree with Mr. Davion, but I don't fully agree. I don't know if the sign has to be smaller just because it's not, a marker of the building itself. But if it's going to be that premier location, I think the sign is great. And I think it really should just be brought down to the level of the federal building sign rather than being so high. But for the purposes of this being the premier luxury apartment building with the premier, restaurant in it, I like the sign. It's attractive. That's just my comment.
Are there any other comments from members of the committee? Thank you, Councilman.
Through the chair.
Yes, Ms. Postoli.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with both. I guess what Bill's trying to say is, are we identifying the building or the restaurant? Can you put that sign back up for a minute, please? Are we identifying this as the Coyote building like we did with the federal building, or are we identifying the restaurant? And bringing it down would help identify that for someone coming into the community. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this happening, but let's bring it down. Let's identify where we're going. Are we going to the restaurant, or what part of the building are we going to get to this restaurant? So let's just be more specific of where we locate it on the building.
Can we bring this? Can we bring that image back up, please?
Apologize. Herb, would you bring that up? I don't have that drawing.
Oh, you can't see it now? I'm sorry. Is it on now?
No.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know why it's showing on my screen as shared. I don't know why.
Through the chair.
Yes, Councilman. Here we go.
So when you're entering the Wick Towers building, as far as the apartment goes, there's a very beautiful sign that says you're going into the Wick Tower portion of the building. The way this restaurant is done is very similar to V2, where there's an entrance on the front and then there's windows going down the side. But the way their windows are, I think your doors open to Phelps Street, correct?
They do. We have two accordion style doors that are 10 feet wide by 12 feet high.
Yeah, so I think the sign is very appropriate because you got an entrance on Federal, you got an entrance on Phelps. And so for that reason, I think the sign is even more appropriate to signify where the restaurant is, where the restaurant starts and begins, and where the apartments stop, So I think it's appropriate again. Just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me suggest this, that if the sign were lowered, and if it perhaps fit between the top of the base and the top of the windows, there's that zone of masonry before you have the moldings. I don't know what dimension that is, but it might look more like it was a part of the building. Right now it looks kind of attached around all this decorative molding. That might scale the sign down slightly, but it would make it look, again, like it fit. The federal building has no ornamentation above the base, whereas the WIC building has a number of molding layers, basically. So I'd like to suggest that come back to the committee with a design that fits the building and see what the scale is on that. My own personal perspective is that the federal building and the WIC building are kind of the two pylons of Phelps Street, and they the two visually should read pretty close together. And to Bill's point, the scale might be a bit smaller on the Coyote, but it needs to look not like it's been sort of attached to the building, but it really is part of the. It is much more integral to the historic architecture.
Is that something that we can decide? I mean, when we say come back, this project has been going on for a long time, and I really want to help.
You could delegate that to staff if you wish.
So how are we? I guess I'm trying to figure out what are we suggesting? Bring it down, or shrink the sign?
Well, I think what I'm suggesting is you consider lowering the sign so that it's at the same plane or same level as the federal building, and that you scale the sign to fit within the first and second floor moldings. And return to the state. You could return to staff and have the staff review that. The goal being that this signage system looks intentional and thought out. There will be other, for successful with 20 Federal, there'll be additional restaurant opportunities further to the north. But right now, these two pylons buildings need to have signs that look aesthetically consistent.
I think that the sign is way too big and it's way too high. I like the sign, but I feel it should be down lower to denote more of the restaurant itself instead of the building. I agree with Bill, and I also agree with Councilman Oliver. I do like the sign, but the design of the sign is very nice. I just think it needs to be scaled down and lowered, probably closer to the sign that we just approved across the street, closer to 10 feet off the ground type, 10 to 12 off the ground. That's just my thought, but I'm the only one on the committee.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate all the comments and the feedback. And, I did not take a picture of the opposite corner of Whistle and Keg sign. And at 10 feet, there's always someone that's trying to touch the bottom of a rim. And we don't want anybody putting their hands on this sign because it is going to be pricey. The recommendation is my screen back up by chance?
Yes, it is.
The recommendation at this level here with the building extension to come down and just fall in between these windows does make good sense. And we're certainly pressed for time. This project's been going on well over a year. And tentatively, we're set to open April 5th.
Okay.
And I know the next meeting would be the first Tuesday in March. So we're looking to try to get something over the goal line here just as soon as we could. And I promise to you that whatever you advise here today, we will take away and go to work.
Ms. Posterly, are you comfortable with this, with the granting approval subject to staff review of the final details consistent with the discussion, or do you want to have them return to the committee in March?
I'm okay with moving forward with staff review. If all we're recommending is to lower it and shrink the sign, I'm okay with us reviewing it internally, moving forward.
Chair.
Yes.
This is Tito. I guess one of the things I'm hearing as it relates to the sign, if we're going to give it staff, we talked about lowering it, and I guess what we want to make sure is what's his absolute minimum that he should lower it. I heard the response that he just said, the guy who wants to try to touch the 10-foot sign, is it 12 feet or is it 13? That's a good number for them, just so that we won't have any, someone who decides that they used to have a jump, a vertical jump, and now they don't. and maybe they get lucky that day. So I guess for me, if I was walking away, what was the clear height for this sign to be?
Mayor, I think it's dictated by the height of the storefront. Herb's got a marker right on that level right there. So that would be the base. Is that tall enough, Herb, to avoid?
I believe that's tall. I believe that's tall enough. That's about 13 feet, if I'm not mistaken.
So they'd have to have a really lucky day to get to that height.
Thank you. So I just wanted clarification for him.
So no lower than that point that at the molding top at the top of the storefront that you pointed out.
Okay.
And moving up.
So Hunter?
Yes, Joe.
If we made a motion to approve the sign, so long as it fit between basically what looks like the second story, would they be okay with that?
Herb?
We would certainly be okay with that. And I understand the size relative to the marquee on the building, and it is going to be a statement restaurant. It's a beautiful layout, and we hope to have all of you there. And it's not going to be low class. It's going to be a very nice place, and we want to brand it well.
Well, to Herb and to Laura, the idea of a triangle sign that works from different angles, given people coming from the amphitheater, from the university, and from along Federal Street, is very ingenious.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there's a motion to approve, subject to final review by staff, consistent with the comments that have been presented about the height and position of the sign, would be in order.
To the chair.
Yes. Who is this? Laura? Yes.
Yes, 100 I just wanted to answer the mayor's question about the vertical clearance. It's 8 feet downtown in the design review area. They need to be 8 feet from sidewalk grade. That's the standard, so that they know. I also wanted to add in, since this sign project was, kind of last minute, Lori and I talked, and we need engineer drawings ASAP. They don't have those yet, but could we make it a condition of the approval that they'll submit the engineer drawings? Because this sign is actually 800 pounds. So we want to make sure that, it doesn't, something doesn't happen. That's all.
Well, the motion would then be to approve, subject to staff review, of the position of the sign and the submission of engineered drawings.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. DeFrance. Is there a second?
I'll second that. Bill Davignon.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for your presentation, sir.
Very good. Thank you, folks.
Okay, we're all looking forward to the grand opening of a project that's been before us on several occasions.
Very good. Thank you.
Did you address the issue of the door and the utility vault that was raised the last time? I hope so.
No, I personally did not. My team members have.
Good. Okay. As long as
Thank you.
As long as Mr. Sashow's comment on one of the previous meetings is addressed, that's fine.
Understood.
That's the final case. Nikki, is there anything else before the committee?
That was the final case, Hunter.
Okay. Then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.